Welcome back to my first video in Tableau series. This video is for beginners. Whether you have little to no experience, I'll walk you through how to create visualizations, and step by step I'll explain about all the key features in Tableau. So stay tuned. I'm super excited to finally show you how to actually create beautiful and effective visualizations in Tableau. In this video, I'm going to use Superstore dataset, which is a very famous dataset. I'm sure you heard about it. So the link of this dataset is in the description box, so you can have access to the actual dataset. Let's create our first visuals. So to do that, we first need to import our dataset. Our dataset is in Excel format, so I'll click on the Microsoft Excel section, and then I select Global Superstore Dataset. Click Open, and it would get to this page, which I have. In this dataset, we have only one sheet, so that's why you can only see the sheet 1. It's just trying to load the data. All right, so now we have the dataset here. So we have all the data, all the fields of the dataset here. So in order to create the visuals, we need to go to the worksheet area. So it's called sheet 1 here, but if you click on the next section here, you can create the sheet 2, sheet 3, and etc. It depends how many visuals or graph you want to create. I'll get back to the sheet 1. So in this page, that's where we actually can create our visuals, graphs, and anything that we want to create. First things first, so I want to explain about this section here, which shows all the fields in our dataset. But if you notice here, we have a horizontal line which divide some of these fields from each other. And I want to explain what are these, why we have this horizontal line. So whatever fields that we have above this horizontal line, we call them dimensions in Tableau. And any fields that are below this horizontal line, we call it measures. So what are the differences between these two terms? Why you're using these two terms? So let's start with the dimension. So dimensions are typically categorical fields like city, region, customer name, product ID, product name, and we cannot apply any mathematical calculation on them. So if you look at like the city, you can see that we have a globe icon beside that because Tableau automatically understands this is something related to geographical information. That's why it put this globe icon to it. We can see we have ABC icon here, which represents data types of a string. I explained about all of these different data types in my previous video. So we have like order date or in dates. Again, these are dimensions because we cannot apply any mathematical calculation on them. We cannot aggregate order dates, right? Because doesn't make sense, right? Or we cannot aggregate or apply any mathematical calculation on the city, on the category, on customer name, or even customer ID, because these customer ID are a unique identifier for each row or for each customer. That doesn't mean that we can apply all of them. It doesn't make sense to do that. So that's why these are all in dimension section. So anything that are cannot apply any mathematical calculation, we call it dimension. You can go through all of them, like postal code, product ID, anything that we cannot aggregate or are not numeric, and not necessarily numeric, because if you look at this row ID is numeric, but if you go to the back to the data set, so we can see that these are numeric column, but again, these are a unique identifier for each row or for each customer that we have, so it doesn't make sense to apply any mathematical calculation on them. We cannot aggregate this number. It doesn't make sense. So that's why, again, these are under dimensions. But what we have below this horizontal line, it's called measures, right? So measures are quantitative values that can be calculated actually opposite to the dimensions. Like we have discount, profit, quality, sales. So we can apply any mathematical calculation that we can get average, we can sum the values across different fields that we have here. We basically can aggregate them. So that's why we have these fields under measured or below this horizontal line. So always this is the same. So we have first all the dimension fields, and then we get to the measure fields. And if you look at this, after shipping costs, we actually have a latitude and longitude field as well. But if you go to the actual data set, you will notice that we don't have these two fields. And I want to explain what is these two fields. So these two fields basically are geographic coordinates. And so when you import your data set with geographical information, like postal code, country, city, whenever you have these kind of fields in your data set, Tableau automatically creates longitude and latitude field for you after you import your data set into Tableau. And these fields obviously are wasn't our part of our original data set, but they were automatically generated based on the geographic location in your data, like your city or the country that you have in your data set. So, and that's why we have these two new fields here. And these are numeric. That's why we have under measure, not the dimensions. And we have this icon of globe here to represent these are related to geographical data or information. So after this longitude, we have another field which is called sheet 1 count. So this basically, again, this is something that we don't have in our original data set and automatically generated in Tableau. And what it does, it just counts all the rows in our data set. So if you go and open the Superstore Excel file and see how many rows you have, you actually get to this number. If I drag it and put it into this main area, you would end up getting this number here, which represents the total of the rows that we have in our data. So it just aggregate or sum the total rows in our data set. So the next field that we have, it's called measure values. Again, this is not something that we have in our original data set, but it's generated by Tableau automatically. And this field, what it does, it just allows us to display multiple measures, like all the measures, basically all the measures that we have here. It would allows us to have all of them in the same chart or table. Like for example, if you want to show all of the measures that we have here together, so we can use this and drag it and put it into this area. So let me take this out and grab it and put it into this area. So if I put it here, I can see all the measure values here. So we have the count of sheet 1, CNT, that means count, the sum of the discount, the profit, the quality, sales, shipping costs. So these are the list of all the measures I have in my data set. So again, it would automatically combine them and put it in here, into here. And you can see that there are some numbers here, but these are overlapping on top of each other. That's why you cannot clearly see the actual values of each of these each of these fields. And in order to see the actual names for each of these measures, what you need to do is to just drag the measure names from the dimensions area and put it into the box, put it into here. And now what we can see is the list of all the measure names. So we have the names, and beside the names, we have the actual values. So now we don't have any overlapping of only values on top of each other, which is confusing. And these measure names, again, is something that we don't have in our actual data set. It automatically generated like measure values, but it just have the names of the measures that we have. And if you, it just makes it simple if you wanted to use all the measure at once. So you just drag this measure values and measure names into this area. If you want to create a table or any other types of visuals, that's the easiest way to do instead of just dragging individual measures one by one. So that makes it a little bit difficult, like to drag discount like first and then profit, etc. Instead of do that, you just drag the measure names and you have everything at once. Right, now I want to show you how you actually create different types of graph in Tableau. To do that, I just want to show you this section here. It's called Show Me. If you click on it, it would show you all the different types of graph that Tableau has to choose from. So we have text table, we have heat maps, we have different types of map, we have pie chart, we have horizontal bar chart, stack bar chart, line graphs, and different types of the graph here. But if you can see, they are not activated so yet, because we don't have any measures or dimension in this area yet. And also, different types of graph require different criteria. So they require different types of number of dimension or measures in order to be able to use any of these types of different graphs. Like if I put my cursor on the first graph, which is a text table, you can see below that below it says for text table try, and it says one or more dimension, and also one or more measures. So that means in order to create this text table, you need to have one or more dimension and one or more measure. And if you don't have that in this main area, you cannot create this type of graph, or it won't be activated for you. But and then the same applies for the rest of them. Like for the bar chart, you need at least 0 or more dimension or one measures. So that's a criteria you need to have in order to be able to activate any of these graphs, or in other words, to create these different types of graph. So let's show you how we can actually create a simple line graph. Let's say I wanted to have sale. So you can drag it, and in order to create any visuals, you need to drag different dimension or measures into this section here. So you can drag it in here. It says drop field here or drop field here, which are, if you put it here, it's a column wise. If you put it there, it's row wise. Or you can just drag it into these two separate sections. It's called column or row. Whatever ways, it's the same thing, so it doesn't matter. So I put it into the row section here. So we have the sales value in different rows, and we can see it here. And also I wanted to see these sales value based on different years, or the order date dimension here. Let me make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so we have all the years, and we have in the column area, so we have it like column wise. We have different years here, and we have sales in different rows. So that's why I put it into the rows area here. So you basically can change the years to different types. You can make it to quarter. We can have quarter, so that's how you can divide them based on different quarters, or you can have months, so you have different months of the year. But for now, I wanted to make it to year, but again, you can make it to the day, or you can create a custom field here if you want to do that. So you can choose different types or how to represent your date field here, so you can go and easily do that. But let's get back to the year. I wanted to make it very simple visualization here. So if you go to the show me section, and if you put your cursor on any of these line graphs here, you actually can see that it's like you can see that it says you need to have one date field in order to be able to create any types of line graph. Which makes sense, right? Because normally in a line or trend graphs, we need to have a date field in our graph. So just wanted to explain this part as well. Now let's say we want to add another field. We want to add more complexity or more information into this line graph that we have. Let's say I want to see the sales values based on category and different years. So in that case, if I drag the category to the column, what it does, it just breaks down my x-axis or the column based on different category and different years. Like we have 2011, 2020, 2014. And since we have only 3 different categories in our data set, each of these years are broken down by 3 different bar charts, which I don't really like how it's representing. Also, if I drag it to the row wise, it do the same concept. It divide the rows into different categories. Like I have furniture, office supplies, and technology, which again, I don't like how it shows. What I want is everything in one place instead of just making it separated or having these horizontal or vertical line in my graph. So if you want to do that, you need to drag your category and use this section here. It's called marks, and you need to put it under here. And now what we have is 3 different category without having any horizontal or vertical lines here. So we can clearly monitor and see the trends of the sales across different years and across different categories. But what is confusing is all of the 3 different categories have the same color. So it's confusing for our audience to understand which is what category. So to make it different color, we can use this mark section. It's called color. So you need to drag the category and put it under the color area, and it automatically create another section here, and we can see different colors. So now it's more clear because we have different colors for different categories and that we have. For furniture, we have the blue color. For technology, we have the red color. And the office supplies, we have the orange color. You also can change the color if you don't like it. That's okay. You can just click on it, and you can choose different types of color for different types of categories. Let's say for furniture, we prefer it to be green. So I check the clean and I put the apply, and then okay. So now we have the green color for furniture. So you can play around and change the different colors for your needs. So the next icon under marks, it's called size. So if you play around with this icon here, you can increase the size of the line. So you can make it wider or thinner. So if I click on it and do something like that, so you can see that I have a wider line here, but it's better to be something like that. So that's what this size means here. And the label means if you wanted to see the actual labels beside each line, for example, you want to see the actual name of the categories. So you drag the category and put it inside the label area. And that's how you actually can have the list of all of them beside each line, which make it more clear. You can do the same thing for, let's say, the sale measures here. So we can add to under the label area. So now we have both the name of the category and also the sales values, but it's better to not make it very crowded because it's confusing. So I'll remove the category. If you want to remove it, you just drag it out. And now we only have the sales values for different years. You can also play around with the label. Like if you do a right click on it, if you do a left click on it, you can have access to this area, which you can play around. You can change the font of the value. You can make it bold, like change the color. You can only show the values of the min and max. You can only show the values for the where the line ends from the beginning and from the end. You can only highlight which points you want to see the actual value. Let's say only these areas. So I can drag it and then automatically I can have the actual values. You can play around with it. Or you can just remove any values by checking this show marks table out. So far I talked about this icon here. It's called color, size, label, also detail. At a time that I was explaining how we can have a breakdown of sale based on category and also order date in a way that everything is in a way that we have 3 different lines instead of just having a separated vertical or horizontal line going through of these line graphs. To just remind you about that, let's say I remove this one and that one. Let's say we have the year, dates, and some sales, which is aggregation of all the sales across different years. And I was talking about how we can bring a category so that we have 3 different lines in one graph instead of just having horizontal lines going on through this graph. Like I mentioned that if I put the category in the column section, I'll end up getting something like that, which it breaks down the x-axis based on category and different years, which I don't really like the format of this graph. And also I talked that if I put it into the rows, it makes it something like that, which again, it's not very effective. So I suggested to drag this category and put it under marks. And if you do it, even if you not drop it under detail section, and if you drop it in here, it would do the same thing. So you can see that the icon below, like above the detail, it's the same as what you can see here. That's what detail do. It basically breaks down different section, which in this case is the category within the sale. I can give you another example of how we can use marks or detail. So let's say we wanted to have category in the columns and sales in the rows. Sorry, sales in the rows. Make this a little bit bigger. All right, so what we wanted to add is this dimension here. It's called market. Market is different region that where sales actually occurs. There can be different regions or country. So if I drag it to the column here, so we can see the different regions, Africa, I don't know, US, Canada, other regions where sales actually occurs within different categories. But again, I don't like the format of how it's divide each different categories here. And also I mentioned if I go to the rows, actually do like the same types of separation of the graph, which again, I don't like the way how it looks like. So in that case, it's better to drag this market and put it under markets or under details. It doesn't matter, both do the same thing. So if I put it here, you can see that now we have breakdown of market, and some lines actually dividing each categories here. And this is exactly what marks or details actually do. It's the same thing as in this example here, but we had the order, dates, and sales. And we wanted to have different categories in the line graph, but right now we just actually have a bar chart. And we don't have any date or order date here. We only have the category and the sales, and we added market under marks section here. So now we have a breakdown of different region based on different category. And if you wanted to add more details or labels, you can easily do that. You can basically drag market to the label. So now we have different regions, so we can see what it happens. And also we can add sales to the label, so we can have the different values for different regions, which makes it more clear. You might ask that we can do the same thing if we drag the market to the colors or not. Yeah, that's correct. We can actually create the same thing if you only drag the market and put it under current color section. I can show you one more time. If you drag the market dimension and put it into this color, you basically get the same thing, but in different colors. In this area, you can see that we have all the market or all different regions that we have, but they're in different colors. And we can do the same thing. We can add the label, we can add the sales label. We can choose whatever it works best for what we wanted to have. So sometimes it's better to just add it under color, but sometimes it's better to just use detail. It really depends what you're generating. But for this example, I think the detail makes more sense instead of just having too many different, like too many color can be confusing. All good. So now I want to talk about this tooltip here and explain what this actually icon do here. So now if we hover over each line, we can see that we have different information. It pops up. It says category, years of order date, sales, and that will actually change if I go through different years. And the same happens if I go to the next line, which is related to the furniture category, and the same thing to the last line here. It just provides some additional information. The thing is, sometimes we wanted to see more information without applying any further changes to what we have or what graph that we have here. We don't want to make any changes to this line graph that we have, but we wanted to add more information to our visuals that our customer or our client can just hover over and get that specific information very easily. And that's when we actually use Tooltip. Let's say I wanted to add profit information. So I drag it and put it into the Tooltip area. And when I hover over the first category, which is technology, I can actually see that profit information has been added to this section, right? So the same thing applies for the second category and then the third one. Now we have profit in addition to the rest of the fields that we have. And then you can add quantity if you would like. So it's a quantity. Now we have the sum of quantity as well. And you can see the value, 12,000. Same thing applies for the second and the third category. So it's a very neat feature to know about it. And also you can change the name. If you're not happy about the name, or you wanted to represent it in different names, so you can change it. Like you can, we can change the font. Let's say I want to make it bold. So if I do it and say OK right now, I can see that it's in bold format. Or you can change the name or any other types of change that you want. You can just click on this tooltip here and make any changes that you would like to do. Now I want to talk about this filter section here. So filters helps us to filter down to very specific information we wanted to see in our visuals or in our graphs. In this example, let's say we wanted to have subcategory under filter section. Once we do that, we actually get this windows open up. So now we have all the list of subcategories. We choose to have use all in order to include all of them, and then click on OK. And now if I go and click on show filter, I can actually see all the subcategories here. And so sometimes you don't want it to have all the subcategories. You want it to filter down or remove some of them from your list. So that's when you actually use filter. It can be any field in your data set, but this is just the example. I choose to select subcategory. Let's say I don't want to see chairs subcategory in my graph. So in that case, I go to this filters and I remove this by removing this tick under beside the chairs. And now you can see that because chair is related to, I believe, furniture. So we actually, that information or summing of chairs to the rest of the subcategories under furniture category actually will be removed. So if I go back, you can see we had different values for the furniture. We had this amount, but after removing chair, we actually have another lower value than the previous one. That means the chair is not included in our furniture aggregation. So that's actually when we actually use filters. We just want to filter it down to see specific information. That's when we use filter. It's very handy. It's very useful. It's a very useful feature to know about. One more thing that I forgot is this icon here. What it does, it just helps you to sort your data or the graph. So if you have a bar chart or some sort of a graph that you need to sort the data, you can use this icon here. You can sort it from having the lowest like values to the highest one, or vice versa. If you want to do that, you need to choose this one, but you can see that it's converted to the bar chart because that's how we can sort the data. So sometimes in your data set, you don't have all the fields, you don't have all the measures or dimension that it's useful for you to create visuals out of it. Let's say you wanted to have a profit margin and use that field in order to create a specific graph, but you don't have it in your measures. What you have in the measure, you have discount, profit, quantity, sales, shipping costs, but you don't have anything related to profit margin. So in that case, you need to create new calculated field from scratch. And how you can do it is by going to this section here, the arrow that you can see, click on it, and it pops up this create calculated field. You need to left click on this arrow here. So once you click on create calculated field, you can see this window will open. You can change the name of it. So in our example, we said we wanted to create another field. It's called profit margin. And by the way, profit margin basically represents the percentage of your sale that becomes profit after covering the costs. For example, let's say if you calculate and you find out that your profit margin is 20%, that means for every $100 in sales, you have $20 in profit. Yeah, or your profit is $20. Or if your profit margin is 5%, that means for every $100 in sales, only $5 is profit. So it basically shows how much of the sales turn into profit, which is a common field that people use it in finance area. So now we wanted to create that field here. Let's add profit margin. Okay, now we have the name of our field here, but in order to create this field, we need to divide profit. We have measures profit. So if we just print it here so we can find it easily, and then we need to divide it by sales. So we have sales here, and that's it. That's how we can calculate profit margin. So this section here on the right hand side, you need to actually click on this arrow. Sometimes it's not showing up automatically, but you need to click on this area here, this arrow here. So it will pop up this table here, which shows all the functions that we can use whenever we want to create a new calculated field. Like, there are a lot of them, like and ABS. I don't know all of them, but you can just search it online if you don't know about each of them or what they do actually. But you can actually see the very short explanation of each of them on the very right hand side in here. If you click on them, you can see what this function do actually. We always have some brief explanation of it, like what this fix function do, and etc. But for this calculated field, it's very simple. All we need is to just divide profit measures by sales, and that's it. And then we click apply. So once we do it right now, we actually have this new calculated field, and you can see that the icon beside this profit margin is different than the rest of the measures that we have. So that's how we can understand this is what we've created manually, and the rest is something that we originally we have in our dataset. And the other thing we need to do in this example is we need to create another calculated field, and I want to call it profit and loss. And what I wanted to do in this calculated field is that I wanted to say, go through all the profit margin value, and if you found any of those profit margin value, it's greater than 0, then add profit a string beside that. If it's not, if it's lower than 0, add the word loss beside them. That's what I wanted to create as another calculate field. So you might say, you might ask how we can do that. So that's very easy. So in this scenario that we want to add some conditions, say, if this happens, do X, and if doesn't, do Y. And in this scenario, we use if condition. If you're familiar with coding or Python, so the term is familiar, we have the same concept in Python or other coding programming as well. So it's the same. I wanted to use the if function here, so I use if, and I would say if profit margin. If I just search, it would pops up. If profit margin greater than 0, then say profit, else say loss, and then add end to finish it. So that's how we actually use if condition in order to create such calculated field. So we say if profit margin is greater than 0, then add profit, a string beside that, else add loss, and then end. But normally when we use if function, when we want to add some conditions to our data, that's when we actually use it. Let's click on apply, and we have it under measure section, because these are strings, like profit and loss. It just not calculate any numeric value. It just adds profit or loss in our data set. I can show you in the data source. So if I go to the data source section, I need to refresh this to actually show you. So now we can see these two new calculated fields. So we have profit margin here. We can see the icon is different than the rest of the measures that we have. And also we have this profit and loss here. So we can see that if the margin is less than 0, we have loss. Let's see this one. So the profit margin is less than 0. So that means we have this loss string beside them under profit and loss field here. And if it's greater than 0, we have profit. So that's what I was talking about by creating this profit and loss fields in our data set. So now we have these two new calculated fields, and we can go ahead and create any types of visuals we wanted to create based on these two new calculated fields. So let's say what we wanted to have is the profit in the row area, and then subcategory on the column. And now we can see that we have the minus profit value and also positive greater than 0, because we have both loss and profit in our data set. We have sometimes we have basically we have profit margin less than 0, but sometimes we have greater than 0. So that's why we have the minus value of the profit here, and the different list of the subcategories, obviously. But if we haven't calculated this profit and loss calculated field, we couldn't basically do any types of filtration. Let's say if you wanted to, let's say in this example and in this graph, we want to only see those profits that are actually greater than 0. So in that case, what we can do is to drag profit and loss calculated field into the filter and say, I only wanted to see the profit, and press OK. And right now we can see that we only have the profit greater than 0, the profit margin greater than 0. We don't have any minus value. So that's how sometimes it's useful to create some calculated field from scratch for ourselves. And here is one example of how actually we can use this new calculated field in order to make a better visuals or graph for ourselves. So that's one example. But if we haven't had this profit and loss field or profit margin, we could have done or create these visuals, because first of all, we just had the sales and profit, so we couldn't calculate or show if we had a profit margin greater than 0 or less than 0. So that's why we needed to have a separate calculated field to calculate the profit margin, and then another calculated field to separate the profit from the loss, and then so that we can easily add this profit and loss calculated field into the filter, and then filter it down to just or only see the profit. So that's one example of how or when we need to create a new calculated field.
I hope you've enjoyed the video so far. For the next video, my plan is to select a real project and walking you through how to create a dashboard from start to finish so that you can use it in your portfolio or resume to make it even more stronger. So stay tuned and I'll see you in the next video.